I remember it slightly because of Gaddafi. What's the environment like? What was going on in Libya at the time? Maybe for the younger generation that are listening that aren't familiar with what was actually happening, what Libya was like, and our reason for being there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a bit of a melting pot. Obviously, Gaddafi wasn't the nicest dictator, as they often are. And I think it just got to a head where, he had to be ousted. The situation on the ground for the general populace was appalling, and there were rebel uprisings. So it was already starting to kick off. So what was really interesting, on the Thursday, I can't remember the exact date, but it was a Thursday night, we had a dining in night in the mess. So we were all in our dress rig. We're all having a few glasses of wine and port. And this is at Coningsby, so on Typhoon. And at about 10:30, 11, the shutters in the bar go down. The station commander stands up and he says, "All Typhoon pilots, your night is over." We thought, oh gosh, what have we done? Someone's done something stupid and we're all in trouble. He said, there's going to be a United Nations resolution and you will need to go home, get a good night's sleep, have some coffee tomorrow morning, and you're all in at midday. So, okay. So we all went home, which is a shame because it was just about to start, kicking off and being a good night. The next day on the Friday, we all go in and we get briefed on the situation and the fact that the United Nations have decided to act as, with NATO. And we are starting, the jets are already starting to get loaded. It's my squadron that are going as the front runner. And we need to start a lot of briefs. So we need to get briefed on the intelligence, what the ground threat is, what the surface-to-air missile systems they've got. We need to go in the sim and just make sure that we're all good for training against that. So we do a few sims. And then you also, because it's an operation, you have to prep all your admin with respect to if you did get shot down, the code words and things that you would use for the guys to come and pick you up so that they knew that they were getting you. So there's like a specific form that you fill that you have questions on that are only yours and no one sees it. And you know the answers to those questions, only you do. So that they know if they come and pick you up, they say, "You, Helen, yes, what's your favorite color?" for instance. And if you give the right answer, they know it's you. So there's a lot of war admin, for want of a better expression, and then a lot of flying training and briefings and just getting up to speed on the scenario. And then on the Saturday morning, we go in, and I forget whether it's a Saturday or a Sunday. I think on the Saturday we're going to go, but they haven't quite figured out yet where we're going to be based. So we just do a bit more prep. And I think on the Sunday morning, we actually end up going. And we take 10 fully armed jets to Gioia del Colle in Italy, which is a base in southern Italy. And you essentially get airborne out of Gioia, fly due south for about an hour and a half, past Mount Etna, which is quite cool. And you are then on the tanking tow line. You tank, and then it's about another half an hour to the Libya coast. So we are flying across, and there's a quite funny story. So it's my friend who's leading us. He's the squadron leader of the squadron at the time. And we go to Roma control because we're obviously we are essentially airliners. We're general air traffic going across all the airways from the UK to Italy. And they say, "Oh, good morning, RAF Air," because that's the call sign we use. RAF Air 7421. Who are you? And we're like, he says, "We're 10 Typhoons, flying to Gioia." And they say, "Are you armed?" And he says, "Yes." And from a Delta Airlines pilot, all we hear is, "Get some." And he's clearly an ex-military US pilot flying a Delta Airlines. I just thought that was brilliant because he obviously knows what's going on. And the 10 jets, we all land and there's no one there. There's literally 10 people there. One of the other pilots that's been posted away to a higher job taxis me in because it's so last minute. And what's amazing, there's one set of engineers and they turn all the jets, and the very next day we fly our first mission, which is just incredible. And then everyone else arrives. It's quite funny. We start with 10 people, and by day 3, there's 600 people there. And it's quite an interesting story because I fly mission 3, and on mission 2, an F6, I think it's an F-15. I can't remember exactly what happens. I think they have an engine failure, but at the time, we think they've been shot down. We don't know. A jet is lost. The crew have been picked up. They're fine. But a jet is lost. And so I fly mission 3. And at that time, we're just no-fly zone policing. It's just we're loaded with missiles. We are literally just not allowing anyone to get airborne. So I'm with my good friend. This is my first op mission. I'm, pretty excited. We get airborne. We fly south. It's, like I said, about an hour and a half. You get to the tanker, and my only worry is plugging in. Because you can break your probe plugging into a tanker if you're a little bit aggressive. And I'm like, oh gosh, am I gonna? This is my first op mission. I've got to get it right. So I get gas, which is great. It's all cool. And by then, like I said, then I'm really chilled. Because we fly over the border, we're flying around, we get news of a helicopter, we're told to commit, and we commit on this helicopter, but I don't know whether it's just a random radar blip, but we don't find anything. We fly around, we tank about 3 or 4 times because our slot is maybe a 6-hour slot, and we fly back, and it's an 8-hour mission in total. And just as a total sidebar, which I guess we can talk about later, is I've not been provided anything to wee in. Men have pee bags, but unfortunately at that point, the women's kit wasn't great. So I've essentially had to dehydrate myself a little bit. So I'm taking sips of water on the way home. I've got a bit of a headache. And we land and get out the jet. We're on a pan. We're all like, woo, this is great. The guys know that it's my first mission. They're like, well, it's the first female, operational sortie on Typhoon. Unbeknownst to us, though, on the officers' mess roof in Gioia, the Italians have allowed all of the press to be up there, and they are taking lots of photos, videos of us, etc. And the very next day, I wake up the next day and have no idea about all of this. My phone is just emails, texts. Oh my God, you're on every single front page. My mum phones. She's really upset because she's heard that an F-15 has gone down, and then she's got reporters in front, at her house. And that's why I always shied away from press. I know the Air Force is always, every organization is always about good press, and they will always encourage it. But it's a real double-edged sword for the military because of that. My mum has her daughter on ops, an aircraft's already been lost, and she's got reporters at her house. It's not great. So, and it's just capacity sapping because you're worrying about that. You're worrying about home. You're worrying about what they're worrying about. You want them to know that you're okay, but you're busy, so you can't necessarily contact them. So it's quite stressful. And I didn't want everyone knowing that I was doing this. And it was a bit sad because one of them said, do my bombs look big in this? And it was written by a female reporter. And I was like, why is it such a big deal that a woman is doing this? Of course I'm doing this. It's my job. I'm no different to any of the other pilots. And all the other pilots were like, oh, we're really sorry about that, Helen. They felt really bad for me because they didn't get that extra stress. And it was just because I was a woman. And, I guess it's good to celebrate, but also in a way, sometimes it just has to be normal jogging. Of course, a woman is doing that. So that was a bit of a shame. But Libya was really good. And then eventually, so at that point, because I'd flown the F3, I had never dropped a bomb. I knew nothing about dropping bombs, the legalities, the rules of engagement, all of that. So, and the war became kinetic. So about 3 months after I was there, Typhoon started dropping bombs alongside the GRs, the Tornado GRs, because they were still in service. They hadn't gone out of service yet. So I was sent home. I went to learn how to drop bombs and all of that sort of stuff, and then came back after that. So that's how the Typhoon was used. The other thing I had, which was slightly stressful, is that David Cameron came to meet us, which was really cool. And it was just after one of my missions. So we landed. We had to get rid of, because we had to carry firearms just in case we did get shot down or we had to eject over enemy territory. And we had to obviously remove all of those when the Prime Minister came, I guess, just in case we shot him. But we got rid of those, and he came in, and there was a photo of us meeting. He came to the jet and we were sweaty, and, we just landed. And that photo was used, and unfortunately it was then used in a website with the title Flight Lieutenant Helen Seymour is a war criminal, and it had links to ISIS. So again, that was another reason why I didn't necessarily want all of this publicity, because any publicity always has, pros and cons. And that was a real con, because obviously that was a genuine threat to my home, my family. They knew my name, that it doesn't take a rocket scientist to find out where you live. So again, that was a little bit stressful, but all in all, great. And I'm really proud of having done it, because Actually, Colonel Gaddafi was found when I wasn't there. I was back home. Now, whether you argue or not, Libya is a better place, I don't know. But at the time, that's what our role was to do. And I'm, really proud to have done the job, because you can spend a whole life training and never having the opportunity to put that into practice. So I'm really pleased that I got to do that. If that makes sense.